Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Ginos Fantasy Hockey Podcast, the podcast you come to when you're finally ready to take fantasy hockey seriously. My name is Nibbelink. I'm the creator of Apples and Ginos, originator of the Zero-G draft strategy. In this podcast, I'm going to break down the most puzzling players league-wide as determined by the Apples and Ginos Discord server. Let's get it. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Puzzling Players. I apologize in advance if I have to mute myself. I have a bit of a cough, and I'm going to try to not destroy everybody's eardrums while they're listening to this or watching this here live on YouTube, but there might be some, let's call it a pregnant pause, all right? There might be a few of those tonight as I work through it, but we will get through all the content. We've got some people in the chat already. PB Stars, Big Slick 16, Lost Ones, and Market Lounge just picked up Lundell this morning. Lundell's got a goal. That's good for me, too. I just got Lundell in a Matthews trade. That's making me feel pretty good already. Let's not waste any time. Let's dig in on the most puzzling player as submitted by the Apples and Ginos Discord server. And that was once again JT Miller. Now, Blake and I talked about JT Miller on the pod that came out today here on Monday. So this is one that you should go back and get that full take, because we did do a little bit more talking about JT Miller and everything that's been going on there. Basically, where we're at now, JT Miller feels like he should still be a buy low, but the underlying metrics, as you can see if you're watching here live on YouTube, have really fallen off. 325th shots per 60, 299th individual expected goals for per 60, 113th on ice expected goals for per 60. And it did not get better against the Red Wings. His line got pretty much caved in, while the Panarin line was caving in the Red Wings. So it was truly a tale of two lines in that top six in New York, and not a good sign for JT Miller overall. So I can't tell you that the underlying signs are looking good with JT Miller at the moment. Still getting over 20 minutes a night, just one goal in his last five. But at the same time, if I had JT Miller anywhere, I don't this year, but it wasn't because I was trying to avoid him. If I did have JT Miller, I would not be doing anything rash with him. I would not be trying to rage trade him or anything like that. I'm definitely still holding on. The worst case scenario here, I think, with JT Miller is that there is some sort of underlying injury, and he's just going to deal with that all year, and that limits his effectiveness. The better case scenario is that he's just in a slump. He's feeling the weight of being the captain of the New York Rangers, one of the most storied franchises in the NHL, and it's just a bit of a problem for him this year. But, I mean, it's still a very talented team. There's a lot of offense around him. I have to believe that JT Miller is going to figure this thing out over the course of the season. It feels terrible right now, but don't make any rash decisions you will regret in a few weeks. Let's move on. Matt Coronado and Nazem Kadri, also both players that we discussed in the podcast that came out here today. Coronado, I discussed basically as a player who I think has a ton of talent. You see this in the last 5 games here. First in the league in shots per 60, 12th in individual expected goals for per 60, down at 74th in on-ice expected goals for per 60. I think Coronado is not necessarily a sniper. He's a bit more of a chucker than a sniper, but getting 19 and a half minutes, you can definitely do worse than Coronado at the moment. And to get to this point, he's on a 22-goal, 39-point pace. He's shooting 8.9%, 7% on ice shooting percentage. Those are bound to regress positively for him over the course of the season. The question is, by how much is it going to positively regress, especially if Calgary starts to turn into a seller here, which is every day goes by, with every loss piling up, it really does seem like Calgary is going to be a seller sooner rather than later. And that's a valid question, but I don't want to I want to give the correct approach here. For redraft, I think Coronado's ceiling is pretty limited just by virtue of the fact that I don't think the Flames are going to score a lot of goals this year. But I do think that Coronado is going to be a vital piece of them trying to score goals, and you can see that he's the one generating a lot of this offense in and of himself, doing a pretty good job of it, and that should positively regress. So I do think Coronado may very well be the most rosterable Flames player this year. That's a very real possibility, but that still might not be, like any kind of game-changing level for fantasy purposes. That being said, still remain very excited about Coronado, the player, in the long term. Kadri still shooting a lot, but shooting a bit more from distance. The expected goals not as good there as the shot totals. Still 21 minutes a night, but no points in his last 5. The take there is that definitely we're kind of readjusting our expectations for Kadri at this point. I think you have to. And honestly, he might get traded if Calgary rather decides to start to make moves like this. If the season starts to really get away from them and they start to think about what kind of value they could get for some of their players on the roster, like Anderson and Kadri, you could get a pretty hefty package on the open market for those two players, I have to imagine. And that might actually be a better situation for Kadri if he goes somewhere else at this point. So I'm not dropping Kadri. I think that with this baseline of shot volume, with this baseline of usage, 21 minutes a night, like he is going to be plenty rosterable in my opinion. This 45-point pace he's on comes with a 6.2% shooting percentage, 7.1% on ice shooting percentage. But again, I am definitely adjusting him down from I think I had him close to 70 points, if not over 70 points in my preseason projection. I'm definitely down more towards 60 than 70 at this point if I was going to redo that projection right now. And it really does feel like we're waiting for the other shoe to drop in terms of what Calgary's going to do with this roster. Braden Point has been a very common player on this list as well. He's had a tough start to the season, just 1 assist in his last 5 games, 19.5 minutes average time on ice, 218 shots per 60, 177 individual expected goals for per 60. That's generally about where he lives. He's never been a big-time shooter, and not volume anyway, but a very efficient one. And he's 65th in on-ice expected goals for per 60. I'm tending to not be that worried about Braden Point still. 59% IPP, 8.1% shooting percentage. That's less than half of his average over the last 3 years. 9% on ice shooting percentage. These things will positively regress, I have no doubt. And again, it's just not a spot where I'm willing to sell low on that player. If anything, Braden Point is a buy low right now. A couple of defensemen. Actually, we got 4 defensemen in a row here, so let's try to break it all down, and maybe we can kind of rank them all relative to each other a little bit as well. Off the top, Jackson Lacombe, obviously an Apples and Ginos favorite. I was very bullish on Lacombe going into the season. He's only got 2 assists in his last 5. He's only on a 32-point pace on the season, 0 goals. I'm saying this before they play against Utah here tonight, so who knows? Maybe Lacombe has a 4-point game here tonight, and all these numbers look a lot better in the morning. But still about 24.5 minutes average time on ice, 33rd amongst defensemen shots per 60, 24th individual expected goals for per 60, 56th in on ice expected goals for per 60 on the season. He has a 22.5% IPP, which is just unbelievably low. So that is probably going to double over from this point onward. I would expect that IPP should be nearly double that number. And if everything else just holds the same, then that would take him from a 32-point pace to a 64-point pace. So do I think that the on-ice shooting percentage is a little bit hot, and Anaheim is showing some signs now that they might slow down from that absolutely insane start that they got off to goal-scoring-wise? Yeah, I do. So I do think... I'm moving my stuff around here. Back to it. The outcome for Jackson Lacombe, I still think, is probably, if I had to give you an honest projection as of today of his rest of season point pace, I would still put it close to 55 points. I don't really have a good reason to move off of that. The only reason I guess you could say is if they move him off to power play 1 and they move him off for somebody like a Zellweger or something like that. I just don't know if they paid this guy a lot of money. Pat Verbeek is not known for going out and paying people a lot of money. And they went and got it done with Jackson Lacombe. I think they view him as a true elite number one defenseman across the entire league, and they're going to play him as such. Power play one, penalty kill, even strength minutes up the wazoo, 24, 25 minutes a night. I think that's the next decade for Jackson Lacombe. And I remain very, very bullish. I would buy low on Jackson Lacombe in a trade if I could. I remain very, very bullish on him overall. Seth Jones is next up here. Panthers have been popping off, so let's see how many Seth Jones points we got. I saw at least the power play goal there from Seth Jones. Is that the only one? So, yeah, add another power play goal to the numbers you see on the screen here. 1 goal, 3 assists in his last 5 games, 24 minutes a night, 50th shots per 60, 46th individual expected goals for per 60, 36th in on-ice expected goals for per 60. Is Seth Jones. 41-point pace. I think he can get over the 50-point pace. Blake and I talked about this. We think that Florida's got a pretty good chance to start to be a little bit more efficient. I think they're starting to find their footing. You're seeing a bit of evidence of that. I mean, it's against Vancouver, and Vancouver's not the best team in the league this year, but I think we're starting to see some evidence that Florida is starting to figure this thing out. They still have plenty of talent on that roster, even if some of the elite stuff is gone with Barkov and Kachuk, obviously. That being said, I still think Seth Jones is probably a 50-point defenseman in this current system. He's starting to actually get some points here over the last little bit. It's starting to come, and I would still project him for a 50-point season at this point in time with some decent peripherals. Zeev Buium here, just 1 assist in his last 5, has had some very, very strange usage. He went up on the top pair and got 26 minutes in one game. And then, let's see here, I'm going to have to pull up the game log because I was looking at it because Minnesota also has a really nice schedule this week. And so I was looking at potentially rostering Zeev Buium in some spots. So here's the last, let's start 6 games ago. 1807, 1834, 2038, 2608, 1818, and then in the last game here against Vegas, he plays just 1455. I don't know what to make of that. I think Jay Hines might be overcoaching this one a little bit. I think you got to let a player with Buium's talents kind of figure it out for himself, and he doesn't seem to be willing to do so far. And that's a tough spot to be for fantasy because it is a little bit of snip, snap, snip, snap. A little office reference for you there. But the underlyings remain pretty good. The individual expected goals for especially popping on the screen there for Zeev Buium, 9th amongst all defensemen in the last 5. I think that this is a really talented player. I just am really leery of what the deployment might be game to game and week to week. So you have to take that in. I think right now he's a streamer, but he's a streamer that I would like to have. I like streamers that have these potentials where, what if he's gets that deployment, he hits in it, maybe he has maybe one of these games he has a big 3-point game or something. He gets 20 minutes, and maybe also in that game, one of their other defensemen goes down to injury, and now all of a sudden he's a fixture in the top 4, and he's getting power play 1, and his offense is starting to come, and he never looks back from that point onward. That's a very real possibility for a guy like Zeev Buium, and those are the kinds of guys I love to have as streamers because then you get the streaming benefit when they have the good schedule, but also you might have the opportunity for him to turn into something long-term in your lineup. So that's kind of how I'm viewing Zeev Buium at the moment. Moritz Seider was the last defenseman I alluded to. He's got 5 points in his last 5 games here, 24.5 minutes, average time on ice, 12th in shots per 60, 55th individual expected goals for per 60, 13th in on-ice expected goals for per 60. Detroit in general has been humming as of late, and Seider has been getting some of that shine as well. He's on a 9-goal, 47-point pace. And honestly, his IPP is probably on the low side, but the on-ice shooting percentage is probably on the high side, and it all comes out in the wash. And I think this is kind of just exactly who Moritz Seider is on a 47-point pace, 19 games into the season. That sounds about right to me. I think Seider is not very puzzling at all. I think he's been this player, this exact player, for the last little while. The boost that he's gotten basically since Todd McClellan joined as coach of the Red Wings is that the power play has gotten very good, and he's been a part of that. And so he's still not like a huge part of that power play, but he's enough of a part of that power play that gives him that extra boost of maybe 5 points over the course of the year. And so that takes him from the 40 to 45 point range to the 45 to 50 point range, and that makes him just that little bit extra valuable for fantasy purposes. If I had to rank all these defensemen rest of season, I think I would probably take Seider first. He feels like the safest at the moment. I know there was some talk about Sandin Pellikka getting some run. At least I saw it in the Discord. So Sandy Pellikka got the top power play here, it looks like, in the last game. That's possible. But again, it's not like the majority of Moritz Seider's value in my mind is that power play. His value is in the peripheral categories. So yeah, it takes the ceiling off. I also don't know that I trust Sandy Pellikka to hold on to that deployment. Oftentimes rookies don't. Sandy Pellikka, very highly regarded rookie for sure across the scouting community and stuff like that. For sure, it's not like a no-name rookie who just happens to be on the top power play. And realistically, the Red Wings power play can get it done regardless almost of who's at the point. So it's definitely possible that Sandin Pellikka hangs on to this for a while. But Seider, I think if I had to give you a guess of how this power play time shakes out over the rest of the season, I would still guess as of this moment right now that Seider would get more of the power play one looks than Sandin Pellikka. So that's where I'm at still currently. Obviously, if we come back a week from now and Sandin Pellikka has popped for 3 power play points in the last week, then yeah, we're going to have to reevaluate. But I don't really know how likely that is either. Is it a good sign for Seider that Sandin Pellikka got a look on top power play? Obviously, it's not, but it's not the end of the world either. If you want to trade Moritz Seider based on this information, then you're going to have to find somebody who is not aware of this information and get it done quickly and then kind of recoup your value there. But you're also going to have to rush it, and so you might not get full value for Seider. I just feel like more often than not, people see these games where somebody will take over a certain power play or something like that, and it ends up being like it was with Dylan Guenther, where he was off the top power play for one game, and then he was right back. And I feel like that's still, I still give a lot of weight to incumbents, especially incumbents who have done the job, basically, and the power play obviously looked great last year for Detroit with Seider at the helm. And so while I do think Sandin Pellikka is probably the power play one guy of the future in Detroit, I just am pretty unconvinced that he hangs on to it all year long as a rookie from this point onward. So I'm not panicking if I have Seider. The recent stretch of play has been good. So that's where I'm at. All right. I've been avoiding the comments until now. Not avoiding, but I haven't been looking at the comments. So let's get into it. PD asks, hey, thoughts on this trade? I would receive Binnington for Schmid and Merzlikins 16-team Cats League. My other goalies are Monty 6K Lion. I don't think I would do that personally. Binnington has been pretty horrible to this point in time. Schmid is going to get a few starts. Merzlikins is splitting with Greaves when healthy. So I don't really feel compelled to do that. If you're trying to get down, like do it this kind of 2-for-1 situation, I would rather find a different goalie to do it for, I guess. I know it may be that this is the only goal you can get because of how bad Binnington has been to start. And if that's the case, then I would probably just hold and figure it out from there. But yeah, it's just a spot where I'm I'm not excited about Binnington. I don't think he is even necessarily likely to be better than Merzlikins or Schmid in the short term, and I view goalies as a pretty short-term proposition all the time. So even in a 16-team Cats, I don't think I would do that trade. PB Stars, I see Jack Eichel didn't make the cut. Would love to hear your thoughts on him given his current goal drought. Thanks as always, Nate. Jack Eichel's an interesting one. I'm going to give myself space here so I know where the cutoff line is. Let's talk about Jack Eichel here. He's got just 3 assists and no goals in his last 5 games now. 22.5 minutes average time on ice, so he's still doing that. 66 shots per 60, 128 individual expected goals for per 60, 26 in on-ice expected goals for per 60. He's still on a 36-goal, 109-point pace on the season. So the shots have fallen off. As you can see, he's still 6th in shots per 60 on the season. Honestly, that's not that surprising to me. He came out firing every puck from all over the ice, and it felt pretty likely that that was a little bit of just an outlier in terms of, I don't know, being excited for the start of a year, maybe playing some with Marner there in the early going, and Marner being much more a distributor than a shooter himself. Yeah, I still think it looks like Eichel is shooting more this year on average. I think that will hold. And so, I mean, he's shooting 10.8%. I'll look it up right now, but I have a feeling that's pretty close to his season long, or his career long numbers. So I don't think that we're going to be too far off this current pace when all is said and done. It's really frustrating. Side rant here for a moment. It's incredibly frustrating that on the NHL page, if you go to the search bar, if you search a player's name, it doesn't come up with the player page at that point. Like, I guarantee you that's what everyone who's using that search function and types in a player name is trying to use it for, and it just doesn't function that way. It's just brutal usage of a function there. Yeah, Eichel's career, 634 games played, he is a 10.9% shooter, and right now he's shooting 10.8%. So what you see is what you get. As long as he keeps up this shot volume, I think this 36-goal pace should hold. If the shot volume continues to drop off, he could be more back towards the 30-goal mark. But I do expect, like, the 100-point pace, I think, is pretty solid here. He's, over 70% IPP, but he can sustain that. 14% on-ice shooting percentage. I think he can probably sustain that. So I don't think this is all that far-fetched for Jack Eichel. I think he was probably a little bit too hot at the beginning of the season. This is some natural regression. The underlying numbers remain pretty solid. A little bit of a reduction in the shots, which I think I kind of expected. Overall, I think what you're starting to see now in terms of the season-long numbers and the season-long pace, I think that's what you should expect for Jack Eichel moving forward. Do you think Lehkonen is a sell-high candidate? Let's take a look at Lehkonen over the last little bit. He's got 4 goals and 6 points in his last 5 games, almost 20 minutes a night, 28th shots per 60, 11th individual expected goals for per 60, 48th on ice expected goals for per 60. Now on a 35-goal, 78-point pace on the season. I think, I mean, I've said this a million times. Basically, my default is that I think that the Colorado Avalanche will move players around in the top 6 and on the top power play. So most likely, I would say at some point in the season, Lehkonen will not be top power play, will not be on the top line. How long that happens for, like how long of a stretch he goes off the top power play, how long of a stretch he goes off the top line for, that's obviously very much up for debate. So that's a question, and it's obviously not going to happen while he's crushing. And the Avs have pretty much just been crushing all year to this point. So as long as that keeps happening, I think you expect it to continue. Do I think that this 78-point pace is going to stick? No, I don't. 15.4% on ice shooting percentage. The 58% IPP is probably about right. Maybe he could go a touch higher, maybe, but not much. I think this is probably, with the Avs being as hot as they are, I think Lehkonen's ceiling, even if he's stuck in top power play, top line all year long with this current deployment, his ceiling is probably 70 points. And then my baseline expectation always with the Avs is that they will move things around at some point. They've always done this for the past, I don't know, 5 years at least. So I do think that this is probably the high point for Lehkonen on the season. I just don't know if Lehkonen has enough name brand value to really get a deal done where you're going to be really happy with their turn, because Lehkonen, as long as he's here, is probably the best player that you could get just because he lacks that name brand value. All right. More comments. Colin's in here. Happy Monday. Good stuff always. Good to see you. Asking, is Roslovic legit? Roslovic, I think, has the only goal here in this game again. So yeah, he's been absolutely on fire since joining the Edmonton Oilers. I'm not willing to say that he's legit. I am willing to say that he is performing really well in a spot that a lot of other players have not performed very well in years past. On the season, he is on a 27 goal, 64 point pace. I kind of think that if he stays in this role, so playing with in the top six with either McDavid or Draisaitl, and on the top power play, if he stayed in that role all year long, I think this 64 point pace, 17 and a half minutes average time on ice, that could be sustainable. Over the last little bit, he's over 19 minutes average time on ice. I don't think that's sustainable. I'm trying to do some mental math and try to figure out exactly what I think it could be. Best case scenario, yeah, I think best case scenario. I mean, best case scenario also includes like some inflated percentages over the course of the year. So best case scenario is probably over 70 points, but that would be like, yeah, maybe the top 5% of outcomes possible from this point onward. More likely, the more likely good scenario for Roslovic is in the 60-point range, and probably the most likely scenario is that at some point Hyman takes his role back on the top power play. Roslovic goes cold, as he has often done throughout his career, and he spends a good chunk of the season at least on a third line away from Draisaitl and or McDavid. I think Roslovic's, if I had to project Roslovic rest of season right now, I'd probably project him at a 50 to 55 point pace. That would be my best guess at this point. Ian wants to get to biz as well. Asking about Braden Bowman. Is he good? Power play 1 is crazy good deployment. Yeah, obviously, anytime anyone gets a shot on that Vegas top power play that is so lethal, you have to take notice. And Bowman had a couple of good games. I actually didn't see his stats from this latest game, so let's throw him in here. He's got 3 games. He scores the 1 goal here. Yeah, the underlines look pretty good. Over 17 minutes, 62nd shots per 60, 39th individual expected goals for per 60, 8th in on ice expected goals for per 60. That will be pretty inflated by the fact that a good chunk of his ice time is coming with that man advantage. So take that with a grain of salt for sure. But yeah, you can do worse than grabbing a guy who's getting top power play on Vegas and just ride it until he's not getting that, right? I don't think you're going to hurt yourself doing stuff like that on a regular basis. So I'm into it for the time being. I have my doubts that it'll last for any significant length of time, but it could. And if it does, then you've gotten something for free. All right. We've got a lot of comments we got to get through here. Let's get it going. Shot in the dark on rest of the season for Lundell versus Fantilli. 10-team Cats League with hits. Have Fantilli on the back of line 1 power play 1. See the Lundell upside with Kachuk on the way back. Appreciate you. I think the fact that Fantilli hits enough here to outstrip what Lundell does, I think that's going to sway it for me. I'm just going to check the averages. So on the season, Lundell is averaging 0.89 hits and 0.89 blocks. You don't have blocks though, right? No, just hits, shots on goal, power play points. And I think Fantilli is going to shoot a fair bit more as well. So I think just in this cat setup that you've got here, yeah, Fantilli's over a hit per game. He's at 2.5 shots per game, so basically 3/4 of a shot more per game. I think their upsides are similar, probably. But in a Cats League specifically, I think Fantilli is the way to go. Ian asks, thoughts on this, Nate? My Nyes for their cider. Goals, assists, power play points, PIMs, shots on goal, face-off wins, hits, blocks, 12 team. My current DR Faber, Anderson, Edvinson, Levshunov. So to say I'm in need of a D-man is an understatement. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it probably depends on your panic meter, I guess, with cider. Maybe that you can capitalize on that to get cider here, and that's what you're going for. I think the trade is relatively fair. Yeah, I think it's fair. I don't know if I have a super strong take on it either way. So yeah, I think you could do that. It would, if you have, a lot of other left wingers as well, and so you're dealing from a position of strength, and you're just kind of balancing out your lineup and kind of doing an even trade, just balancing your lineup better. Then I don't mind a trade like that. Hey Nate, EP40 has been playing well recently. How does metrics look? Thanks. We can do that for sure. Elias Pettersson, the forward. He has a goal, 7 points in his last 5 games. The Canucks have 3 goals here so far through 2 periods against Florida. And Pettersson has a goal again here. So he's got another goal on the board, over 21 minutes a night, 278 still in shots per 60. I wish he was shooting more still. 187th individual expected goals for per 60, 123 on ice expected goals for per 60. He's now on a 70-point pace. Things are starting to look up a little bit for Pettersson. Yeah, previously I had said that I thought I would be moving Pettersson's projection down. I think I had him at 73 or 74 point pace at the start of the season. I think I'd probably still put him at or just below a 70 point pace rest of season. I think this is probably where he lives most likely. But yeah, it's nice to see the bounce back here for Pettersson. And yeah, we've seen some proofs of concept that he could be even better than this. And I would love to see it. I really do hope that he's able to do it. I have Pettersson in a spot, so it would be good for my fantasy team as well. I'm rooting for it. I just think that most likely just under or right around 70 points is going to be the rest of the season projection for me. Jordan, hey Nate, do you and Blake plan to do any content for the Olympics similar to what you did for the Four Nations? Really enjoyed the content you put out for it. Thanks. Yeah, we haven't talked about it, but probably. We had a good time doing it, just talking about the teams and the constructions and what they did and the players that we liked that they brought and the ones that we thought they should have brought that they left at home. Obviously, we don't know anything. We're podcasting from our basement, and these are hockey executives, but it was fun to have a take and to see that play out over the course of the tournament. And we did a live stream of one of the games where we were watching, and some people were just, had us on in the background while they were watching as well. And yeah, it was a good time for all. So I think we could do something like that again. I would expect so. Hello, my mate Nate. Has your projection for Tavares changed? If so, what is the update? He's popping off this year. Yeah, so we talked about Tavares a little bit. Jonathan. I was going to write Jonathan Tavares. Check that out. Wow. I don't know what the last time I did something like that. 4 goals, 6 points in his last 5 on the season. He's on a 47-goal, 104-point pace. Yeah, he's had a really strong season. Getting more minutes with Matthews out, obviously. The underlines look really strong. I do like what we're seeing from Tavares, but undoubtedly he is running exceptionally hot. 86% IPP, 20% shooting percentage, 15% on ice shooting percentage. Extremely, extremely hot. I think maybe I would bump him up slightly. I'm pretty nervous about the Leafs as a whole, and that is still holding me back a bit, but it's definitely a good sign that his underlines are so good. Tavares' underlines are always quite good, to be clear, so that part's not too crazy, but the average time on ice being up this year is kind of the bigger piece there. And if the Leafs continue to struggle, I think they will have to lean on Tavares a little bit more than they have in years past. So yeah, I might adjust it slightly up, but I don't think it would be many orders of magnitude. Lappy asks, is Michkov doing any good recently? We can check in on Matvei Michkov for sure. 3 goals in his last 5, no assists, just under 14.5 minutes average time on ice. 87th shots per 60, 134 individual expected goals for per 60, 160 on ice expected goals for per 60. It's an 18-goal, 41-point pace for Michkov. The luck metrics don't look like it's going to change a ton from here. If he's going to get less than 15 minutes a night, then the ceiling is like probably 50, 55 points. So that's really tough to build a strong projection for Michkov. You have to find some hope to hold on to, that he's going to impress Tocchet at some point and going to get himself into his good graces and get that 18, 19 plus minute a night treatment. If and when that happens, I will be all in on Michkov. I think he's a terrifically talented player, but at this level of deployment, I don't think it's going to get much better. Leafs versus St. Louis tomorrow. Someone has to look better after, right? No way both teams keep looking this bad. You would think. Dynasty Dave's in here. Good to see you, buddy. Thoughts on Cider now that he lost power play 1, likely to get it back. Seems like his Paris are also lower. So yeah, we addressed this one, so you can scroll back a little bit in the time wheel here and check that one out. Also, thoughts on Slav and Byfield. No power play 1 now. Seems like bubble players too good to drop and not the best to start every game. Package trade target. Yeah, I think you could definitely do something like that. I don't mind stuff like that for sure. Byfield is on the top power play in this game here, from what I can see. So I think that's maybe you're only referring to Slavkovsky. Because there was, I don't have that tweet up, but there was a tweet about him losing the power play 1 in practice, I believe. So yeah, that is a possibility. I'm trying to think if you can actually make this trade and actually get something good for it. I guess it's a theoretical question. I don't have to have a terrific answer for it. If you can, then sure. I don't think these guys are going to burn you, is kind of where I'm at. I think Byfield is very physically talented. I don't know if he's going to explode under a Jim Hiller offense for some amount of points that's going to make you so sad that you moved on from him in a trade where you got a good 2-for-1 and got somebody who is a guy that you feel really good about putting in your lineup every single night. I think that's where I'm at with those two. So yeah, 2-for-1, not a bad idea. Hyman or Konechny, still going Konechny there. Bowman, we talked about. Bangers Cats League, would you trade Trouba and Batherson for Brady Tkachuk? Absolutely, I would. Armin's in here, good to see you. Fantilli goal, we'd love to see it. Armin has thoughts on Dobson, ASP, Orlov. So yeah, I talked about ASP. If he, obviously anybody getting top power play on Detroit, I'm into. And almost 19.5 minutes average time on ice, that's good enough where you can roster Sandin Pellikka for sure. So yeah, I definitely think you should roster him. For as long as he's got top power play, you should roster Sandin Pellikka. Orlov, I think you can kick to the curb and not be too sad about it. And then Dobson, I think, is kind of exactly what I thought he'd be. He's a really good even strength defenseman, getting some pretty big minutes, and he's on a 50-point pace. I think that's all sustainable. So I think what you see is what you get with Dobson. PB Stars, I think Hyman and Roslovic are both on PP1 tonight. We can confirm this right now. It does appear. Hyman, Draisaitl, McDavid, Roslovic, Bouchard on the back end. Yes. Bit of a random question for fantasy playoffs. Which 2 of these 3 would you like? McCann, Huberdeau, Coronado. For fantasy playoffs, honestly, I'm not even thinking about that right now. We got to get there still. Maybe you're all the way at 6-0 already, and you've got it locked down. But for us people who are still scrapping for some wins here, I think we got to focus on what's directly in front of us. Brady McLaren asks, thoughts on trading Seth Jarvis to receive Braden Point, 14-man points league, goals worth 3, assists 2, power play 1, shorthand points 3, shots on goal 0.1, hits and block shots 0.2. It's not a huge weight for the peripherals, which obviously is good for point. I honestly don't know about this one. It feels like a trade that I don't feel like I have to make at the end of the day. I don't know if you win that trade by so much that it's worth it, and the potential that, when a player is cold, there's always a potential that there is a real reason why that player is cold. And it's not just that they're going to bounce back. So you got to factor in whatever percentage of that there is as well. It's just not a trade I feel I would make. Would love to hear about Cousins. Sure, let's throw Dylan Cousins in here while we're at it. Cousins was not having a good run and then had a nice little game for himself the other night there. Let's check out what that was. Yeah. So, yeah, he had a 2-assist game. Didn't have any shots in that game. Comes back with a no-point game where he has only one shot. Then he has a 2-shot game where he has a goal and an assist. Then he bumps up to 18 and a half minutes but has no shots, 1 hit and 2 blocks against LA. It's just been up and down. I dropped Dylan Cousins in one spot where I had him this past week. Ottawa has a bad schedule this week. I don't think you have to hang on to him. His shots per 60, 291st. Individual expected goals for per 60, 349th. The underlying stuff looks pretty terrible for Dylan Cousins at the moment. I honestly can't believe that they're still trotting this guy out on the top power play over Shane Pinto. That's basically malfeasance at this point, in my opinion, but I'm not the coach there, so I don't get to say. He is still on a 30-goal, 60-point pace because he had a pretty good start there. But yeah, Cousins is not a player who I'm worried about, really destroying me if I drop him. So I don't feel like you have to hang on to a Dylan Cousins, especially through a 2-game week like this. Elias Pettersson, another goal here tonight. You love to see it. All right, we made it. We're back to the list, and we'll see what we can get through here. Where do we leave off? Chris Kreider at the top here, and we'll throw in Troy Terry a couple below him there. 3 points for each of them. Kreider has a goal and 2 assists. Troy Terry all assists. Kreider's getting just under 16 and a half minutes average time on ice. Terry's just under 19. Terry is doing a lot of penalty killing this year, which does add to his time on ice as well. Kreider, 282nd shots per 60, 252 individual expected goals for per 60, 157 on ice expected goals for per 60. Troy Terry is 151 in shots per 60, 120 in individual expected goals for per 60, and 163 and on ice expected goals for per 60. Kreider is on a 59-goal, 76.82 game pace. Definitely that's going to slow down. His underlying numbers have cooled down here a fair bit. I think, to be honest, Anaheim just needed to cool down a bit. Troy Terry is still on 91-point pace with a 16.4% on ice shooting percentage. Definitely a lot of those numbers were bound to come down at some point here. Yeah, I think I'm not doing anything with these guys. I'm still rostering them. 3 points in the last 5 is still fine. I'm not changing anything about what I'm doing with them. I'm happy to roster them in a 12-team league. But Kreider in particular, those underlying numbers being a little bit down, that is the first cause for concern that I've seen, I will say. Alex Tuch, 2 goals, 4 points in his last 5, 17 and a half minutes average time on ice. I don't think Tuch got in on any. The Sabres are up 3-1 right now in the third. Don't think I saw Tuch. No points for Tuch tonight so far. 182 shots per 60, 180 individual expected goals for per 60, 105 on ice expected goals for per 60. He is playing with Tage Thompson on the top line and Josh Doan currently. That's a nice look, and not on the top power play though, because Lindy Ruff hates fun. Alex Tuch, I feel like at the end of the season, he's on a 32-goal, 73-point pace. At the end of the season, you're going to look up and it's all going to be the same numbers. He just came by it a different way again. I think we're in line for another 30 to 35 goal, 65-ish point season for Alex Tuch with great peripherals. And what you see is what you get. The only question I have is, because Alex Tuch is a UFA, is he going to try to get out of Buffalo, or is he going to re-sign for a big deal? That's the bigger question to me. I think both. It's a good question, actually, because maybe there is some motivation you could claim for the team to like keep his minutes down if they're trying to sign him at a lower number, and maybe there is some grand conspiracy to keep him off the top power play to keep his numbers down. I don't know how much stock I could possibly put in that. That seems a little far-fetched, but crazier things have happened, and Buffalo might be the place where those things could happen. But if Tuck is starting to get dangled a little bit later on in the season, you have to think that they would put him on power play one, get his minutes up, and try to inflate his point totals and make him look very attractive to a potential trade partner. So, yeah, I think there's at least a case for that as well. So it's Buffalo. There is still a lot of variance going on, but at the end of the season, I still feel like you're going to look up and you're going to be like, yep, it was another Alex Tuck season. He scored between 30 and 35 goals, and he had 65-ish points, and I was pretty happy with him. All right, Mackenzie Weegar, 0 points his last 5 games. We talked about Weegar as well on the pod, Blake and I did, so go check that out. 4th in shots per 60 amongst all defensemen, 26th individual expected goals for per 60, 78th in on-ice expected goals for per 60. Right now they're showcasing Rasmus Andersson on the top power play. If Andersson gets traded, which everybody expects to happen and expects to happen kind of sooner rather than later. If Andersson gets traded, I'm still not even convinced that Weegar goes on the top power play. Right now he would, because Parekh is out with injury. But if they're trading Andersson, it is kind of a sign that they're giving up on the season, to some extent at least. That would probably mean that they would just trot out Parekh on power play one and try to get him comfortable being their power play guy of the future. And so, yeah, it's not a great spot for Weegar. That being said, like, the shot volume is all there. The team is going to score more goals. I don't think it'll be a good offensive environment, but he is going to have better than a 5.1% on ice shooting percentage. That's pretty much a guarantee. So I think this is probably the lowest it gets for Weegar on the season, but I don't think the upside is terribly high. 35-ish points, I guess, is almost the hope for Weegar at this point. It would take a pretty good run from him at this point to get over the 40-point mark, in my opinion. Nico Hischier, just 1 assist in his last 5 games, but over 23 minutes a night in that span. 294th shots per 60, 275 individual expected goals for per 60, 98th on ice expected goals for per 60. These are really puzzling numbers from Hischier. I think Hischier is a legitimate puzzling player, and I'm not convinced I have a great read on this situation. So yeah, take that for what it's worth. I have Hischier in a few spots. I was very into him in the offseason, but it really does seem like his underlyings are painting the story of a guy who hasn't figured it out this year for whatever reason. Underlying injury potential always. Yeah, it seems weird that they'd play him 23 minutes a night, but they also don't have a lot of other options now with Jack Hughes out. I don't think you can do anything with Hischier. I'm not trading him away, but I'm also, based on the underlying numbers, I'm not that interested in going out to acquire him right now because they've been bad, and they've been bad for a while now. So, yeah, that's where I'm at with Hischier. I think it gets better over the course of the season, but I'm not confident enough in saying that I would say that he's a buy low necessarily at this point. Nikolai Ehlers has 6 points in his last 5, just over 15 minutes average time on ice, 31st shots per 60, 52nd individual expected goals for per 60, and 15th in on-ice expected goals for per 60. He's on an 18-goal, 55-point pace with just a 7.7% shooting percentage and a 10% on-ice shooting percentage, 60% IPP. Typically, Ehlers is a guy who lives in the mid to high 70s in terms of IPP, so definitely feel like just some good positive regression coming through for Ehlers. It's that time on ice once again with Ehlers in RBA's world. It's just hard to fathom him staying this low after they gave him such a big contract, but it's Carolina Hurricanes hockey. It's definitely possible he kind of stays down in the time on ice all year. But still, the worst case scenario for Ehlers, I feel like, is pretty much what we got out of him in Winnipeg last year. Power play one, second line, really efficient work. So, and honestly, like better second line players to play with in Carolina. And also, I think there's more of a chance for him to get on the top line in Carolina at some point again this year, and probably has a better chance of smashing if he does that. So, overall, I'm still pretty in on Nikolai Ehlers. Probably you're not setting any buy lows for him at this point because he's kind of popped off in the last 5 games here. But I think overall I'm still pretty happy to have Ehlers on my teams. I'm not really looking to do anything with him. Shea Theodore, 3 points in his last 5, 24 minutes a night, 5th in shots per 60, 12th individual expected goals for per 60, 21st in on ice expected goals for per 60. He's not on the top power play. They're still running this 5-forward thing with Braden Bowman, who we mentioned earlier. He is on a 5-goal, 36-point pace on the season. 40% IPP, 2.5% shooting percentage will come up, 9.1% on ice shooting percentage will come up. Shea Theodore is a 50-point defenseman on Vegas with 24 minutes a night. Actually, could be even more. I think Theodore's probably a bit of a buy low at this point because people who drafted him were expecting power play 1. They're not getting it. Now they're getting a 36-point Shea Theodore, who is famously not a guy who hits a lot, and so the peripherals aren't adding up. So I do think Shea Theodore actually makes for a pretty good buy low at this point. You can buy him with the expectation that he's not getting power play, and you might be able to get him from somebody who is kind of rage trading him. I'm into it. I think Shea Theodore can score 50 to 55 points on Vegas without power play 1, so I think he makes for a solid buy low here. Tyler Toffoli, 2 assists his last 5, 15 average time on ice, that reads. They're 311th in shots per 60, 337th second in on ice, individual expected goals for per 60, and 141st in on ice expected goals for per 60 is Toffoli. He has been demoted down the lineup now, playing with Gaudette and Dellandrea in the last time we saw him. Not on the top power play. It's Alex Wenberg there, which makes no sense whatsoever, but it's happening. It's a tough look for Toffoli with this latest round of deployment, so I don't think you have to hang on to Toffoli. I think he's still a solid player, but he's going through a tough stretch right now and getting demoted as a result of it. And down the lineup in San Jose is a really tough place to score any points from. So I don't think you have to hang on to Tyler Toffoli. All right, the Utah guys. I love talking about teams that are about to play but haven't currently played because we all know whatever I say here is going to be irrelevant and probably look really stupid after this game. But let's get into it. Clayton Keller, 2 goals, 4 points in his last 5. Gunther, 2 goals, only 2 points in his last 5. And Logan Cooley, only 2 assists in his last 5. Keller is over 19 minutes. Cooley's almost at 20 minutes. Gunther is sitting just over 16 and a quarter. Gunther's still 14th in shots per 60, 35th individual expected goals for per 60. Keller's actually at 17th in individual expected goals for per 60. Cooley down at 206th there. All of them pretty good in expected goals for per 60. The on-ice number, Keller at 43rd, Gunther at 59th, and Cooley at 64th. It's a good spot to be still. I think they ran pretty hot coming out and everybody was excited, really excited, and rightfully so about what Utah might be. I still feel pretty confident in things kind of leveling out with them being a pretty good offensive team. On the season now, what do we got for point paces? Keller's on pace for 82 points, Gunther for 64, Cooley for 64. I think that the most likely scenario here is that Cooley's point pace, Cooley I feel like is now trending towards being a buy low because I do think that, he's got a 54% IPP. That's going to pop up a little bit here. I feel pretty confident about it. The minutes, him being up there at like 19 minutes a night on the season is pretty strong. Dylan Gunther is the hardest one to figure out. I think he is a very puzzling player currently because he feels like he is pretty inconsistent game to game, and he is drawing, it seems, the ire of his coach a little bit from time to time because of that. Gets himself demoted off that top power play as we saw the one time there. So there are just some scenarios here for Dylan Gunther where he just never really does get those minutes that we really want for him to truly pop off. I think that's a real possibility and something you have to take into account. Clayton Keller feels pretty locked in, at least a point per game upside for 90 plus. So Yeah, I think that's where I'm at across the board with Utah. They ran really hot early. They ran a little bit cold here in the latest stretch, and it'll all even out to. I haven't really changed, I guess, my preseason thoughts about these players too much based on what we've seen thus far. They've just kind of, instead of just staying at a consistent baseline, they kind of went above it and then came below it, and it should all come out in the wash, in my opinion. All right, from Logan Cooley to Will Cooley to round this thing out. And then I'll finish up with some more comments. 3 goals, 4 points for Will Cooley in his last 5. Been getting this top power play here with the Rangers over guys like Lafreniere and Trocheck. That's a pretty nice spot for Will Cooley to be. And it's working. As long as it's working, he's going to stay there. He's just under 18 minutes average time on ice. It's good stuff for Will Cooley. He's on 25 goal, 45 point pace. That looks relatively sustainable to me based on the underlying numbers, and he throws the body a ton. I think, 25, maybe even 30 goal pace in a best case scenario for Cooley as long as he's on this power play 1. I think that's possible. He's 119th shots per 60, 139th individual expected goals for per 60, and 89th on ice expected goals for per 60. Again, I kind of think that while Cooley may not stick on the power play 1 for the entire season, while he's here, he's a really solid bet. And I think he's talented enough to maintain this role and kind of maintain this point pace that he's built up for himself to date. All right, back to the comments, and we'll close things out. Where did we get to? Any reason Seth Jones popping off seems random. He was so bad for the first 15 games played. Yeah, Seth Jones has another goal here now, also on the power play. I think it's just regression. I don't think he really changed that much. I think he maybe was playing a little bit worse earlier. The situation around him was good, and now he's kind of risen to match the situation a little bit. And he's a good player in a good spot for fantasy, and now he's finally breaking through for some points. It was due. Any candidates for an Ehlers trade to acquire or trade away? Because those are obviously two different things. I guess I'd have to know that. We did talk about Sandy Pelika, so go just kind of scroll back and you'll be able to get that. Buchnevich is a drop right in a 14-man league. Yeah, Buchnevich is definitely a drop, unfortunately, at this time. I saw some, he was playing with Sundqvist and Suter. That's not going to be good enough to hang on to him, in my view. Run, don't walk to drop Buchnevich. I like it. I'm ready to trade JT Miller for Ehlers. Don't do that. Nikishin saw his time on ice fall drastically with everyone healthy, but the highest time on ice again tonight with the shot hit block numbers he puts up. He's a banger's god. Can we hope for offense ever? We can hope for it. Based on the early deployment, it seems less likely that we get it than maybe we hoped at the beginning of the season. But yeah, I am content to roster Nikishin. I would trade for him to acquire him and just live on that baseline of shots, hits, and blocks and hope for a breakthrough in terms of some power play time at some point in the season where he could really exceed those numbers. I still believe in the player. I just don't know if Rod Brind'Amour will give him the power play that he needs to take the next step for fantasy purposes. Is Askarov actually good, or do you prefer Wallstedt? That is a really tough question. Obviously, I don't like to project goaltender performance. Askarov has the clearest path to taking over the San Jose net. I think that's pretty obvious. It is his net in the future, and as soon as this season, and he is playing terrific. I think that needs to be stated. I don't think a lot of people actually know how good Yaroslav Askarov has been playing in the last little bit. Here are the last 5 games that he has played. 3-2 win against Colorado, where he allows 2 goals on 38 shots. His next outing is a 6-1 win against Seattle, where he allows 1 goal on 30 shots. His next game is a 3-1 win against Florida, where he allows 1 goal on 39 shots. His next game is a 2-1 win against Minnesota, where he allows 1 goal on 29 shots. And his latest game was a 2-0 loss to Calgary, where he allows only 1 goal on 35 shots. Askarov has been tremendous. arguably the best goalie in the league over the last 2 weeks. So, I mean, if he's out there, you should go look at him for sure. I think Askarov is good. He's been touted as a big-time goalie prospect for a while, and I think he could get some run here. I think nobody expects Alex Nedeljkovic to put up a long-term threat to Askarov's time, whereas obviously Wallstedt has to contend with Gustafsson there in Minnesota, and Gustafsson has a contract that says that he might deserve some time in the net, even if Wallstedt is playing great. So better situation for Wallstedt for sure, but Askarov, especially if you're in a league where it's a little bit more forgiving for goals against, because clearly San Jose will give up some pretty bad situations, and there will probably be a few stinkers in there. But I think Askarov is a terrific goalie, and I think more likely than not, he gets a good chunk of run here. All right, last one, and then we're going to get out of here. Chatting up a manager, frustrated with Reinhart. I want to offer Tuck and Barzal as a package. Thoughts? I think that's a pretty solid package to go 2-for-1 to get the higher end player, and then you can continue to mine your waiver wire throughout the season. I'm into it. Get the best player in the deal in Reinhart and get it done. All right. I think we've made it to the end of this one. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out for another fun hour of puzzling players here. Love interacting with the community, but that is going to be all that I've got for this episode. Hopefully it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you saw and heard today came from Natural Stat Trick and 18 Skaters. Many thanks to Matt Creamer for supplying the music for the podcast. That's it, folks. Much love.